Humans idealize certain values, certain qualities, and knowledge and wisdom being prime among them. From the time immemorial, Hindus have been celebrating the pursuit of knowledge, both spiritual and secular, personified as Mother Goddess Saraswati. Traditionally, on this day of Vasant Panchmi, which is the 5th day of the Lunar Hindu Almanac, students pray for wisdom, for knowledge, and worship ceremonies are organized in educational institutes and universities. It's a privilege for us that today to discuss the significance of worship of knowledge as Mother Goddess. We have amongst us Swami Shantatmananda Maharaj. Maharaj is a senior monk of Ramakrishna Mission and Ramakrishna Math. Maharaj is currently serving as the Secretary of the Delhi branch of the mission. He has an extensive interest in the youth activities, and his brainchild, the Awakened Citizen program, has percolated value education amongst more than 1 million youth and more than 25,000 teachers in last 10 years. The library at the Mission Center of Delhi sees more than 500 students coming daily and reading, and these are the students who go on to join top offices, top universities, even the civil servants. The Vivekananda Youth Forum is another area where Maharaj has been guiding students and youth. And the recent computer center also witnesses so many students coming and learning new skills which are required for the modern time. Maharaj has been working with youth so extensively, so it's a privilege for us to have Maharaj amongst us and discuss what is the significance of this day of Saraswati Pooja for the youth, for the students. Maharaj.
Saraswati Mahabhage Vidye Kamalalochane Vishwarupe Vishalakshi Vidyan Dehi Namostute. It's an offering of salutations to Goddess Saraswati. She is the embodiment of knowledge, or Vidya. And by praying to her, students seek knowledge. Now, India itself is a land of temples, land of celebrations, land of festivals. But it's a history of some several thousand years. And all these festivals and celebrations have quite a lot of meaning. They cover the entire community, as it were, every segment of the society. There are people who seek the highest kind of spiritual benefit from such observations. People use it as an occasion to socialize. It's an occasion to express the abilities of art, culture, etc. It helps people, the sculptors and those who make those images, etc. It's a means of livelihood. So ever so many things are linked to every festival. And these festivals are celebrated by practically every community in a big cross-section of the society, so to say. So it is not religion specific. Although we have an image, and largely it is Hindu festival, you might say, but you'll be surprised to know that every school probably in India celebrates this occasion, whether it's a Christian school or a Muslim school or anything. Largely, I don't mean every other religious school does it, but it's all also widely accepted by students of other communities, because this has got nothing creedal about it. It has no narrowness. It doesn't force one to accept any particular religious ideology or philosophy. It's a prayer for knowledge, prayer to the universal mother, so to say, for knowledge. So since all children, all students are interested in knowledge, I think probably every community participates in it. That's the beauty of these functions. And the worship is done, the prasad or the sacramental food or the offering is distributed amongst all, and everyone accepts it, no one feels any compunction or any aversion or anything negative about such festivals. So this is very important to know all this. So this particular festival called the Saraswati Pooja is celebrated on Vasant Panchmi, the day about the lunar almanac, which Sri Nitish told you. It usually occurs in the month of February, when the climate is very good, very soothing, very comfortable, and children really enjoyed it. On this day, in most of the places, that's what I'm seeing, lakhs and lakhs of Saraswati images are made throughout the country. Imagine the livelihood, the job opportunities provides to those artisans. So children themselves, they bring the image, decorate it, and participate in it beautifully. It's a very nice function. In fact, in the ashram also, in 45 minutes time, we are going to have this function here. Generally, it is stated that they worship for getting knowledge. What type of knowledge? Normally, by education or knowledge, we understand as something about science, arts, languages, etc., etc. Of course, all such education has certainly meaning, utility, and value, but all these have a lot of limitations as well. So, there is a more elevated or an expanded idea of education itself, or knowledge itself, which we get in a scripture called Vishnu Purana. Of course, about Puranas, our Nitish may tell all of you about that. These Puranas are texts which extol about a particular god or goddess and all its glory and achievements and so on. It's more belonging to the Bhakti school of philosophy. So in this Vishnu Purana, there's a beautiful saying which says, Sa vidya ya vimuktaye. This literally means that alone is real education, which liberates or gives complete freedom. So as against the idea of acquiring science, maths, physics, language, etc., yes, they also give us some kind of freedom. That is, they free us from the lack of knowledge or understanding in these areas. But is it all the idea of freedom we should understand? Or is there even a deeper and a more foundational or transcendental idea of freedom? That's what we should understand. And then only we will know that ultimately the worship of Saraswati has inbuilt in it this idea, which can take us to the highest goal of life, namely freedom. Because, in the Hindu view of life, freedom is the ultimate goal. What is that freedom? We will presently come to discuss. I often say this, if the human endeavors of the entire humanity, wherever they might be, if all these have to be clubbed into a single sentence and expressed, I would say it is this: it is the constant seeking of freedom. Whatever we do, wherever we are, one constant pursuit of entire humanity is this idea of freedom. But normally, people seek freedom just at the existential level. For example, there are three well-known areas where people constantly seek freedom. One is freedom from the abhava or lack of wealth. Second, freedom from lack of health. Then freedom from whatever lacks in our interpersonal relationship. Of course, there might be other areas also. Largely, human existence centers around these three areas. So there is a constant effort on the part of humanity to seek freedom from these limitations or the lack of freedom in these three domains, so to say. So there is a constant effort. Where does it lead us? Supposing somebody is getting, say, 25,000 pounds per month, and the person feels that it is not enough, it's not adequate. So he or she wants to be free from that lack of adequate wealth or lack of adequate finances. So that person takes up some additional employment, some additional source of income to augment and be free from this idea of lack of wealth. See, by that the person increases his income to 30,000 pounds from 20. What might be result? Suddenly he, because of overwork, taxing oneself too much, he develops diabetes, blood pressure, stress-related diseases, and then he loses what little freedom he had in the domain of health. Or the people at home say that, throw away your additional income, we are not interested. You don't have time from morning to night. Before the children get up, you go away. You come back after they go to sleep. We don't want that additional income. So, the freedom that the person got in one domain was lost in some other domain. So constantly, in our search for freedom at the existential level alone, we keep on hopping from one effort to another, to another, to another, gaining somewhere, losing somewhere, gaining somewhere, losing somewhere. So it seems to be a never-ending vicious circle of seeking freedom. So I often give this example. Supposing you have a monthly income of, say, 25,000 pounds, it's a substantial money. Still, you would have to make some kind of a allocation or budget, say 5,000 pounds for this, 3,000 pounds for something else. You have to make some kind of a arrangement, how much you can spend. You can't spend 30,000 on parties alone every month if you have a 25,000 pound income. Obviously, there has to be some limitation, some division of the finances. But suddenly one day you get a letter from Barclays Bank Limited, which says some long forgotten uncle or somebody of yours has left behind 1 billion pounds, and you have to produce your identity, like your passport or the secured social security card or something, and claim the entire amount. You're shocked, you have never even thought, but suddenly overnight, you've got so much money. Now, once you collect it, afterwards, will you have to budget how much you have to spend? Simply you have to give instructions, that's all. Either issue checks or phone banking or net banking, keep on spending. All your life, several generations, can't exhaust that money. That is why the Indian scriptures talk of such a freedom which would take care of the lack of freedom in every other sphere. So you don't have to keep on seeking freedom at the existential level only. If you go to a higher level, if you go to such a level, if you get such a freedom, you'll be able to completely get rid of every other idea or feeling of lack of freedom. That is the highest idea of freedom, which the Hindu scriptures talk about. In fact, the Hindu view of life itself is like that. According to the Hindu view of life, there are 4 purusharthas or basic objectives of life, namely dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. What is dharma? Dharma is the guiding principle. That which guides you, that which really lays the foundation for your life. All your activities, all your functioning in this world are all guided by this idea of dharma, which is like your inner voice, your inner conscience, which always points out like an unerring magnet, a compass in the right direction always, like always towards north, always towards righteousness, always towards being ethical, moral, and so on. This inner guide, or this, that is what is called dharma. That which, it comes from the Sanskrit dhatu dhru, which means to hold, to uphold, that which really takes hold of you, directs your life. So that is a guiding principle. All your activities, they have to pass the test of dharma. So based on dharma, you can have the next purushartha or objective, namely artha, or acquiring of wealth. Similarly, passing through the filter of dharma, you can enjoy the wealth you have acquired, which is called kama, or satisfaction of desires. And then finally, you have to go to the idea of moksha, or freedom. That freedom is what we are just talking about a little earlier. That freedom which would completely free you from every type of curtailment, every idea of lack of freedom. So this is the ultimate goal of entire humanity according to Hinduism. The ultimate goal of life for all individuals is moksha, or the total freedom, because during all other pursuits, pursuit of kama, pursuit of wealth, artha, there are difficulties, problems, you get into all kinds of arguments, fights, even losses, gains, and so on and so forth. You participate in all that, and finally you reach the ultimate goal of dharma. In fact, for that also the Hindus talk of two ways. One is called pravritti, other is called nivritti. What is pravritti? Is the path of participation. You go through dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. It just slowly, it's a regulated way, a regulated approach to life. You have to, supposing you go to a place, you go slowly, you walk the distance in a measured way without straining yourself, and reach the destination. Supposing you have to go from somewhere to somewhere else in London. So there's a distance about 5 kilometers. The path of pravritti is walking slowly, taking your time without exhausting yourself, without getting into any that kind of business and so on. That is the pravritti marga. You do it very leisure. Stop on the way several times, maybe have a cup of tea somewhere on the roadside, in a restaurant, then finally you reach. So here they go through dharma to artha to kama to moksha. They pass through 4 stages of life, namely brahmacharya, that is studentship, garhastha, householder's life, then vanaprastha, total withdrawal from all activities, then finally sannyasa or moksha. It's a graded approach to life. The other is nivritti marga, a path of total contemplation, where you just sidestep the intermediary ideas and go directly from the dharma to moksha straight away, bypassing the intermediary steps. That's called nivritti marga, the path of contemplation or meditation, where you do it this way. You don't go through all the 4 stages of life of brahmacharya, garhastha, vanaprastha. You go from brahmacharya straight away to sannyasa. Directly you go to sannyasa. That is called it's a very, very hard and tough journey. It's like running the entire distance of 5 kilometers non-stop. You run at the maximum possible speed, because you have to reach immediately. You can't waste time. You have to go within, say, maximum half an hour or so. So just from start to finish, you run, reach. So that requires tremendous physical strength, mental strength, resolve, ability to withstand difficulties, hardships, and so on. A life of tapasya, life of struggle, life of striving. So that is called nivritti marga, or the path of contemplation and renunciation. They go very fast. So, here also the goal is ultimately moksha or the freedom. In one case, they take it slowly, they proceed in a graded way, reach the ultimate goal of moksha. In the other, they go very fast, they have no time to waste, and they run from the studentship to ultimately a total freedom. Now, how this is attained, that's also beautifully explained in another scripture called Mundaka Upanishad. Because we saw in the Vishnu Purana, what is that? Vidya. What is that Vidya which really gives us that kind of a liberation? Sa Vidya, that is education. Ya Vimuktaye, that gives you freedom. That is explained little more clearly in this Upanishad. Upanishads are the end portion of Vedantas called Vedanta. The end of the Vedas or the final portion of the Vedas are the real, you can say the real gems of Vedanta or the essence of Vedas, you can say. In that, Mundaka Upanishad says, there is a question by a householder. He asked his teacher, what is that? Kasmin bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati. What is that? By knowing which everything else becomes known. It's like a riddle. It's like a puzzle. He's asking that kind of a Zen-like question. What is that learning by which, O great one Bhagavan, kasmin bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati. What is that? By knowing which everything else becomes known. Then the Rishi answers beautifully, Dve veditavya. Only there are two things. All knowledge, entire learning can be classified into two. And he calls them as paracha, aparacha. What is that? Paravidya is all that is in the existential level. All sciences, astronomy, geography, all whatever you can imagine, grammar, every type of learning that is possible on earth at the existential level, all are classified into what is called this paravidya. So most of all we learn, what we study, everything in school, college, university, beyond, research, everything comes under, all that comes under aparavidya. All these are all called aparavidya, or they are the existential knowledge. All that can be in the aparavidya. But what is that paravidya? That aksharam adhigamyati, that which goes beyond. Paravidya is that transcendental knowledge that is beyond this aparavidya. That which is supreme knowledge that liberates you completely, totally. The freedom that is talked about in the Purusharthas of the Hindu Shastras, the freedom that we discussed, all that, they culminate in this acquiring of this paravidya or the transcendental knowledge. Again, because to understand, all other learning in the world at the existence level, all come under what's called the aparavidya. Paravidya is that transcendental knowledge that gives you that supreme freedom. See, because whatever you learn at the aparavidya level, obviously they all have limitations. They don't give you that complete freedom. Because you read, there are some people who are much better than you. You are a scientist, then your discoveries are overturned by someone else who comes after you. You have wealth, you find people much wealthier than you. Or you have wealth, suddenly overnight you become a pauper. All that is achieved under this aparavidya, they are all subject to destruction, subject to limitations, subject to all these things. They are of a transitory nature or an impermanent nature. They may be good for our existential life, they're necessary also, but we must understand. You see, the Hindu view of life was never negative. They never said you don't become rich or you become useless, you don't strive. Nothing. They encouraged everything. Everything was encouraged. But they only said that you must remember the limitation of all that. All this cannot give you ultimately that freedom. However rich you may be, you will always feel that you want more. The richest people are fighting the biggest corporate wars in courts because they are not happy with that. They want more. So money is not something which can ever satisfy you. Like that, every other pursuit in this world. But all these have utilitarian value. They're all necessary. They are useful and so on. But if you stop at that, you will never get what is called the total freedom or that final, that ultimate freedom which the scriptures talk about. So we cannot stop at that. We have to go beyond. So that is why he says this Paravidya. If you get that Paravidya, that will completely give you that total freedom. What is that Paravidya? It all requires a lot of explanation. Very briefly, I will explain and then I will close this talk. Paravidya, that really makes you understand, makes you be aware of who you are. Paravidya completely relates to your understanding. It's a revelation. It's a deep knowledge about your own nature, your real nature, who you are. Normally, the understanding of 99.99% mankind, we are this limited frame of body and mind associated is all that we know about ourselves. We think that we are all that. But Paravidya says, you are beyond all that. You are that undying, in fact, birthless, deathless, eternal, Satchit Ananda Swarup, existence, knowledge, bliss, what they call as Atman or Chaitanya or consciousness or awareness. This awareness, once you track that, once you get hold of that, then you do not suffer from any lack of freedom. Because what happens, you see, does it mean that all poor people will become overnight rich? No. The existential world will not change at all. Your world view would change completely. See, I often say in a place like Delhi, there is a family, there are 4 members, husband and wife, and 2 children. They get 50,000 rupees per month. They find it's not enough. They are always struggling to make both ends meet, etc. In the same city, there's another family with 1 million rupees per month, same 4 members. They also feel it is inadequate or not enough. So somewhere we are going totally wrong in our mathematics. 4 is not equal to 25,000. 4 is not equal to 10 lakhs. What does it mean? Somewhere something is wrong. So this Paravidya, the knowledge that who you are, will not straight away remove your existential wants, or it will not give you immediate material prosperity or anything. But that will give you a complete understanding yourself so as to change your worldview completely. Once you change a worldview, then you can live beautifully anywhere. Supposing there is a room, it's a little suffocating, or saying, oh, AC has failed, this night fretting and fuming. Another, okay, doesn't matter. After some time, they'll fix it. There are others are living. Millions and millions of people live every day without AC. What does it matter? And you live beautifully in the same room. You're not worried till the electrician or the technician comes and fixes. So just an attitude. So is it Paravidya? Once you understand that your essential nature is that of awareness, and that persists, then you discover a huge new dimension of life. You discover extraordinary truths about yourself, and that takes you beyond sorrow, beyond suffering. That gives you immortality. See, very briefly, what is this awareness? Every time I am talking, I am aware of that. I am sleeping, everything. I am doing this, I am doing that. Even if I am not doing, even if I am sleeping, after I get up, I say that yes, I slept very well. I am so happy. That means there was awareness even in sleep. So this awareness is something which doesn't change with age, doesn't change with you, young or old or man or woman or anything like that. That is there constantly. If you understand that this constant awareness, that alone is my basic nature. Everything else is all temporary, transitory. I should not bother about that. Once you get hold of that, once you start living in that awareness, then your life becomes totally different. And that's what would give you that extraordinary freedom. Sa vidya ya vimukte, that is said, that is what. So, although Saraswati Pooja starts at this kind of worship where children, they enjoy, they have fun, they bring items for offering, they distribute, eat, and so on. Largely, it is understood as praying for good marks, good exam, good result, able to study the subject well, and all that. Deeper lies buried in extraordinary idea. The idea of education, idea of knowledge is the highest, where you really understand this idea of Paravidya. And by getting that, by getting educated in that Paravidya, by discovering the truth about yourself, you transcend sorrow, you transcend suffering, you transcend death, you truly become immortal. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your inspiring words, for guiding the students, and for indicating that the path of Purushartha from which Ma Saraswati leads from a lower truth to a higher truth, in the words of Swami Vivekananda, and how this freedom is not only the freedom of senses as we generally perceive, but it is freedom from senses, in the words of Swami Vivekananda. May we meditate not only upon the aparavidya, but also on the paravidya, on the answer of Shaunaka Rishi of Mundak Upanishad on Sarvamidam Vigyatam Bhavati. And you were very right. In fact, here also, yesterday we got an opportunity to worship Mother. Perhaps for the first time in the university, there was a Saraswati Pooja, and students from all the walks of life, not only the Hindu students, they participated. So the knowledge is something which everybody seeks and everybody moves towards that path, and may we achieve that knowledge. Thank you, Maharaj. I thank you on behalf of the Hindu Society of the Oxford University and the studentship of the Oxford University. Thank you. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you.